Welcome to the first of the Modern United Nations introduction training videos. These videos are not designed to make you know every single possible rule that there is, and they're not necessarily enough on their own. However, these are to introduce the most commonly asked questions and basically the key things you need to know before going into your very first conference. So while this won't cover everything, you'll be able to go in after these 5 lessons and have a sense of what you are meant to do and how you're meant to do it. I would suggest once you have had a look at these, and particularly after your first event, but maybe even before that, you have a look at the more detailed rulebook, which is given alongside the general research framework and other things. And remember that if you should still not understand or have any issues with what the rules are in advance or have any problems, there are numerous people, being your year representatives, the chair, the president, or myself, to speak to about the Modern United Nations and how it goes on. So in this first lesson, we're just going to do almost a philosophy of what we're trying to achieve and how it works. And this is very important because often most students get confused in the Modern United Nations, not because the things are hard to do, but more because it's actually fairly tricky to get your head around where all this works and what you're meant to do and why it all makes sense without understanding what the game is. So this very first lesson is very much on how does it work, what's the game, and how do we make it slightly more nuanced, and how do we be far more effective in operating. So the Modern United Nations is a simulation of the real United Nations. You will each be countries representing member states. The countries are selected by the centre, by us, and are usually picked because they are not obvious countries, so we very rarely do the UK, for example, because we know its background, and also to ensure a nice broad spread of different experiences, different countries, and different ideas. So in the Modern United Nations, what we're doing is essentially each of you will be in teams or on your own, representing the will and view of that member state. And this is very important. You are not going to argue or debate or try and get changed stuff that you personally believed in. Part of the challenge of Modern United Nations is that you need to instead focus on and work out, what does your country think, what does your member state think of this resolution, of this issue being voted on, and then making alliances and votes whichever way. So you are a representative of a member state, not yourself. And essentially, for a series of votes, debates, procedures, and backroom dealing, your job is to make sure that your country's interests, your country's will, and what your country cares about is reflected in the resolution. Because essentially the way the UN works is they propose resolutions. Now, this can be in something called the General Assembly on the left or in committees on the right. And what a resolution is it's almost a decision, a rule, or an instruction from the United Nations. And the resolutions themselves are a list of, we believe this, and we therefore order this. The details in the wording of the order, the details in the wording of the beliefs, what the resolution says will have a massive effect on what the United Nations actually does. So your job as a representative is to make sure that the resolution contained nothing that is particularly harmful to your country's interests, and also advances stuff that you think your country believes is important. So essentially you have this resolution, basically an instruction, and either in the committee or in the General Assembly you will be trying to change that resolution so that the eventual instructions, the eventual result, finished project will represent your country. Now, the first thing to realise, the key element is General Assembly generally focuses on our rule set, and we use a modified version of the USA UN Model UN rule set because we mostly do one-day conferences, and so we can't necessarily do the massive, long, multiple resolution systems that other weekend or whole week conferences do. In our system, generally the General Assembly will be the entire group of people in one room. So if you're in a team of, say, 2 or 3, all 3 of you will be sat at the same table and you'll be working as a team. And generally in our system, the General Assembly is a hidden, unseen resolution. So there'll be a resolution prepared in advance. 1 or 2 countries might know about it, maybe even write it, but no one else will. And then it'll be announced, and then it is up to you during the General Assembly to very quickly work out your position, build alliances, and debate en masse. So this will be you with your team members and everyone else in the Modular United Nations in one room. The committees, on the other hand, are more personal. If you are in a team of 2, there will be 2 different committees. If you're in a team of 3, there'll be 3 different committees. It is designed so each country will be able to send 1 member to each committee. And each committee will focus on a different problem, a different fact, a different debate. And so the committee's job is primarily to look at, say, a healthcare resolution, edit it on the lines of what each country wants, and propose a solution to a given problem. Now, a different committee might be focusing on the environment, international crime, maybe focusing on humanitarian aid, might be focusing on a conflict. And the first thing you're going to do if you're part of a team is work out which one of you is going to do which committee session, because you'll be on your own. There's only one representative from each committee. So that's to recap. The General Assembly is all of your team and everyone in a room. And the committees are 1 person per country in a room. And therefore, if there are 5 people in a team, we have to have 5 different committees running at the same time. So these committees are often where most of the work happens, because you can't hide behind team members. And because it's much smaller in scale, more people have a greater say. Because it's not waiting for, say, 50 people to talk, it's waiting for 15. So we primarily will do a committee session in the morning, debating a resolution or the number of resolutions we are running, and then in the afternoon moving over to a General Assembly on an unseen issue. That doesn't always have to be the case, but that's generally how we operate. So the first thing you'll be thinking about is, in your teams, yes, you need to work together to make sure that you all understand where your country's position is and who does what committee, but a lot of this will still be independent. You need to make sure that you understand what your committee's position is, and you are involved in a committee element or a problem that you are interested in. So, what is the objective? You will have, and we'll explain in a future lesson why this is the shape it looks like and what it is, a resolution. So if there's only one of you in your team, because it's a small Modular United Nations, you'll all be doing the same one. But more often than not, you're in a team of at least 2. And the idea is, in that team of 2, you say both of you are South Korea. There will be 2 different resolutions. Now, you can't both just do one. You have to do one each. And the resolutions will look broad like this, obviously, of words. And you should have one in front of you to compare to as we go along. The resolutions are an instruction from the UN, often ordering other branches of the UN, be it the peacekeepers, be it the World Bank, be it the sanctions relief, etc., etc., ordering some part of the government and member states to do something. This, and particularly for Modular United Nations, these are designed to be offensive to pretty much every single country in different ways. And so each country comes to the table, comes to the committee meeting, wanting to change this. The problem is, each country wants to change different things. And particularly, good countries will try and work out ways that they could harm their rivals, harm their opponents, through changing bits in here, which disproportionately harms them. So the way what Modular United Nations is we have a starting project, we have the resolution, and then we are going to spend a few hours editing it. Now, the first thing we can do, the first type of edit we can do is simply remove stuff. Okay, remove elements, remove wording. We can remove whole sections. You can remove recommendations for certain ideas. You can just remove a single word and change its meaning. The removal is one way, therefore, to get rid of stuff that is offensive, stuff that you don't like, stuff that doesn't serve your interest. Alternatively, you can add stuff in. Add stuff usually either whole bullet points, whole clauses, or just bits at the end of clauses or in the middle of clauses. The last thing you can do is you can edit. So rather than say the word demands, you can change it to recommends, which obviously means if it's something you don't like, recommends is easier to escape. So you might edit whole sentences, edit words, edit ideas. So through the removals, additions, and edits, you will change the meaning and you will change the effect of that resolution. And the idea is over time and over that 3 hours, you will make sure that your country's position is best represented in this resolution. So the resolutions very rarely look like their starting point. They are very often very different, and particularly successful countries have managed to completely remove elements, edit elements, or add elements which suit them. And a lot of people, particularly when they're new, get very fixated on removing bad stuff, but actually adding good stuff or editing stuff so it gives you an advantage, often gives your opponents a disadvantage, is very, very, very positive. because you want to use these resolutions as a means of your foreign policy. So the Model United Nations is all about this. Now, in a wider and sort of, if we were doing a weekend or a longer session, often you, rather than editing particular resolutions, you have lots of proposals about resolutions, and much more of the debate is between resolutions. Because we do relatively short sessions and whole day sessions, but not weekend sessions or not multiple day sessions, we focus on one resolution, which is quite long, and most of the procedure is about editing this this resolution. So your job is to edit it. Now, how you go about that will be discussed in a future video called Procedures. But what you need to know for now is your mission as your member state is to edit this resolution in order to best achieve your country's objectives, be it removing negative stuff or adding additional good stuff. The way you achieve this, although we're looking at the debate in a bit, is simple. You need to win votes. Things get added, things get removed, things get edited with votes. Now, part of this is not simply writing something that everyone's going to like. Clearly, there will always be opponents. But there are also people who don't care either way, but also want their own edit, their own change. And it's thus about you identifying who your allies are, identifying who the opponents are, and identifying who the people who are swing votes, who can vote either way, and trying to work out through maybe trading votes for something they want, or persuasion, or marginalizing your opponents, trying to get people to vote on your side. So a large part of the modern United Nations is not necessarily about understanding the nuances of international politics. It is about understanding how to build coalitions, how to build alliances, how to negotiate, backstab, deal, whatever you want to describe it, behind the scenes. Now, we're going to look in the next video about the procedures and how one does that. But as long as you remember, when you're doing this, the key mission is for you to change this resolution through alliances, deals, supports, and coalitions to get votes so you can change stuff and your opponents can't. So until the next video where we look at how you do this, we will sign off now.